from the advisory board. Is Maria
I'm here.
Yeah, Dorsal's Maria online.
She's unmuted and
I'm present.
Can we
try it one more time, Maria.
Present.
Excellent. Maria, would you like to introduce yourself to the board?
My name is Maria Arns, and I'm on the advisory board. It says my internet is unstable. I just switched companies, but I'm grateful
We
to be
can
here.
hear you. Your movements are a little choppy, but we can hear you fine.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us and thank you for being part of the advisory board.
Thank you.
All right, Claire, would you also recognize any of the staff working group members that are here or online?
So we have 2 staff work group members in the audience. Would you mind just standing up and introducing yourself, saying what city you're from and your role, and so we can know who you are.
I am Layla, Human Services Coordinator with the City of Fairway.
And I'm Anya Zupancic. I'm the Human Services Manager for the City of Erie.
And Dorsal, do we have any staff work group members attending online?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you. Michaela.
Hi, Michaela Daffern, she, her pronouns. I work for King County's Department of Community and Human Services. In my day job, I am lead staff to the King County Affordable Housing Committee, and I serve on the SKIP staff work group. So I support Sonari Marshall, who will be there in a few minutes, and she is sitting down at the table. Thank you.
Michaela and Dorsal, is there anyone else online in the staff work group?
Yes. Evan Maxim.
And
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Evan Maxim with the City of SeaTech, supporting councilmember level at your board.
Thank you.
And we also have Laurel.
Hello, Laurel Humphrey, City of Tukwila staff.
Daphne.
Daphne Hernandez, City of Covington staff.
Well, welcome everyone. Again, thank you for being with us on a Friday afternoon. I'm sure you've all had a busy week, so let's make sure that this is a positive way for us to end the week. All right, we'll move to public comment. That is a public commentary on what this week seems to have been like. I don't know if it is for anyone else. That's how it felt for me. But moving on, this is the place on the agenda for public comment. If you would like to make comment and are attending online, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom, typically, of your screen, and you will have 3 minutes to make your remarks. When you begin, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Dorsal, is there anyone online that would like to make public comment?
No, ma'am.
No. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make public comment? Hearing none. All right, we will move on to the approval of the February 21st, 2025 minutes. Is there a motion to approve? We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the approval of the February 21st, 2025 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please say no. Minutes have been approved. Moving on to agenda modifications. Claire, are there any agenda modifications today?
there are no.
Excellent. We are moving right along. We will move to item 5, board business. And item 5A is an icebreaker. Today we'll focus on developing our work plan for the next year and the strategic direction of SKIP. So Claire has prepared an icebreaker activity for us to start our meeting. Claire.
Thank you, Chair. So welcome, happy second day of spring. You wouldn't know it based on the weather. Usually this meeting for the last 2 years, it has been bright and sunny and warm. So it's just our luck. but that's also why I wore hot pink to help you stay engaged and alive and alert.
I
So.
thought about wearing, but I,
You wore it yesterday, huh, Aaron? It's in the wash.
So this March in-person meeting is always one of our most important meetings of the year because we start talking about next year's work plan and budget. This year, we're also going to start beginning the conversation about a 5-year plan and what that vision could look like. We're also planning to welcome, today we were going to welcome our newest member, Councilmember Jean Axiger, which we haven't met in person before, but we will meet him in person at the June meeting. For awareness, we use our first names here at the board because we do have a mix of mayors, of council members, and administrators. So just for awareness, and let us jump into the icebreaker. So this is called Write Your Own Headline. I would like you to get into groups of 2 or 3. I'd like a mix of newer board members and board members that have been with us longer. Once you're in your group, I'd like you to discuss what your dream headline for Skip would be 5 years from now. So this could be a vision, the vision you have in 5 years of Skip's success, or something you would like to see about South King County. But I would love you to get into these groups, talk about it, pick a person to then share out at the end, and then we'll go around and share. Any questions? Are we good? All right, let's get to it. And folks online, if you want to think of your own headline, to do that as well.
ourselves the right balance here.
Is that? Oh, that's great. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Strawberry.
Yeah.
Oh, but I guess dream, I mean, doesn't have to be realistic.
Just try to.
I think in 5 years.
What I was thinking was that no housing. Funding. No, I mean.
It produces, housing Skip produces record housing.
That would be great. You know, I think, I would say realistically, you know, just our first bill
Contract.
is not realistic in 5 years.
Doubling the 2020.
Read the article.
No, doubling, you know. Their 2027 commitment in 2030. I don't know.
Any good connections?
On the way.
Yeah, fully funded by Skip.
Let's just go for $1 million. I mean,
See,
That would be my.
Okay.
I like both of your ideas.
Yeah. It's like it's just.
we produced something. We didn't invest in it. We did the damn thing. And I want to take credit for it. I didn't invest in, I didn't fund affordable development.
I mean, it was great, but it was. It's to say.
Was marginally or something, or what was the phrasing?
Just watch his presentation. I mean, it's lovely. She begins with the
let's come back. And who would like to share out first? I will go first. This is what I came up with.
Okay. I want to hear it.
South.
Can you choose yourself?
So it is not skip specific. It's more South King County, but South King County, most affordable and desirable place to live in King County. So we would
Very
be
nice.
contributing to the affordable. Like to go?
I'll go. And I think I coupled it together correctly. Grand opening for Skip. 100 million in public-private funds opens doors to 1,000 families in need.
Wow. Nice.
You said dream.
Doors. I love it. 1,000.
1,000 doors.
1,000 doors. I love it. It's okay.
Oh. Skip, proud to share that funding will occur in all member cities this year.
One of ours is Skip produces record housing again.
Again.
I like that. Love it. Thank you all.
Do you want one about Arch? Skip continues to outperform Arch.
That's the winner.
Thank you. Thank you for humoring me in that. And it was good to have some laughs to get going. Dorsal, is there anyone online that wanted to share? If there's board members that would like to share and you're online, you could raise your hand. Or not.
I have one. No, I came in late.
Thank you.
Yeah. South King County Skip solves homelessness.
All the way.
There we go.
I was looking for a way to formulate that.
That was your idea too, though. We started with that one, Carmen.
I just couldn't formulate that.
Thank you.
Right, now we just need to make all those headlines a reality.
Yes. Okay.
So let's get busy.
Next agenda item.
All right, the next one is the 2024 accrued interest and future policy. So Skip's interest earnings for us have been a really good opportunity. Last year, we allocated interest to this year's fund balance, and the 2024 accrued interest of more than 540,000. Yes, 540,000 presents a larger opportunity and necessitates a deeper discussion. So today, we want to discuss how to apply these interest earnings, considering options like a reserve policy or other budget actions to effectively achieve the executive board's goals. So that's what we're going to be discussing. And Claire, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So from 2019 to 2023, contributions to Skip in the operating and capital fund accrued $150,529 in interest. The vast majority of this was accrued on those housing capital fund contributions. And if you recall, we talked last year at this time that in order to spend those interest earnings, we needed to get the approval on the specific use by each member jurisdiction that had accrued interest on their accounts. So in 2024, this was done through the annual work plan and budget adoption process. And you, the Skip board, recommended that those funds be applied to the 2025 operating fund balance, and member councils did give their approval for that use. So fast forward to today, interest accrued in 2024 on all Skip funds totaled just over 540,000, as the chair just mentioned. And just want to acknowledge this is a good problem to have. And we have not discussed a reserve policy or other ongoing policy for use of interest earnings. And so today I would like to start that conversation. So there are several options for your consideration. You'll notice that in the draft 2026 budget that was included in your agenda packet, I added a reserve line item at the very bottom that equals the total accrued interest 2024. That was intended as a placeholder for this conversation and not a policy recommendation, given that I wanted to have this conversation with you today, but also needed a way to show that amount to you. So the beginning and ending operating fund balance in the draft budget includes the interest accrued from the 2019 to 2023 based on your council's approval. So since Mayor Ralph is not here today and Kent's contributions are a large portion of the interest accrued, I will ask her to weigh in on this topic. So the 5 options that I would like you to consider and would like your initial feedback on include option 1, adopt a policy that maintains 30% of expenditures in reserve and apply the remaining to a board priority. A board priority could be anything really. If it's your priority, then that is what it is. It could be applying towards one of these other options. It could be adding it to the Housing Capital Fund. So 30% for expenditures in the 2026 budget would total approximately 145,000 of this 540,000. A reserve fund could be used in future years to mitigate increases in member dues if a recession hits hard, or any other unanticipated expenditure, a need that the board would approve. So under this option, the $145,000 would show up in reserve in the operating budget for 2026. Member councils would approve the use of the 30% of their accrued interest from 2024 to be used as an unrestricted fund balance in reserve, giving the board the ability to use it when needed. There's other ways of doing this as well. You can hold it in reserve and you wouldn't touch it until we then would go back to councils and get those approvals. So lots of ways to frame that if you were interested. So in future years, councils would approve whatever amount is needed to reach the 30% of total expenditures. So it would be a smaller amount than this year's because we would be maintaining that carried over from the previous year. So the 30% figure is what Arch uses as a goal to maintain and reserve. I reached out to our other sister organizations, SHAPE in Pierce County. They do not have a reserve policy, and up north, AHA, they also do not have reserve policies, and they were a little envious of me even bringing this question to them. I'd like to just go through the options and then get your feedback. So option 2, used towards a rapid acquisition fund for South King County. We hear frequently about the need for funds to purchase properties for sale pretty quickly. There's currently not a dedicated source of funds available for rapid acquisition in South King County. It's something we've talked about here before, but we just haven't had the funds to make it happen. Under this option, we would add some staff capacity to establishing a rapid acquisition application, vetting, and approval process, but that's something that we would absorb. That wouldn't require new staffing. The fund may not have enough funds in it until several years of contributions to it are made for it to be substantive, but it does address an identified need that we hear frequently in the developer.
Claire, did you say this was in our packet or it's not in our packet?
These are initial ideas. I'm tossing out to.
Not in the packet.
It is not in the packet. Okay. To get your feedback. But these are, for feedback only. No decision would be made today. And so what I'd like to do is get your feedback and then bring some analysis on options you would be interested in. So, option 3, apply towards the Housing Capital Fund. We would add it to each of the funding jurisdictions' approval amount during the Housing Capital Fund concurrence process. For those members who don't contribute to the Housing Capital Fund, we would seek approval during the annual work plan and budget process. King County, for example. Option 4, apply to the operating fund balance. This would show an incredibly high fund balance of around $900,000 that we could continue to spend down as our revenues haven't quite caught up to our expenditures. It may open up the question to councils about why they should be paying any member dues at all if that fund balance is so high. So that could be a challenge, but it would provide an additional cushion on the operating side. And then option 5, any combination of the options 1 through 4. So again, this is just an initial conversation to start the discussion, and we'd love to hear your feedback.
Does anyone have any thoughts? Yes.
I have a question about option 2. Can you expand a little bit about rapid acquisition? Have there been opportunities that were missed by SKIP because we didn't have the funds? Obviously the property dictates the spending, but about how, there's a market value. Is this where does this come from, and how quickly could we jump? And if we do, what would we do beyond that? I know it's a multi-tiered option, but
Yeah, so for example, City of Burien has a requirement for naturally occurring affordable housing, larger multifamily buildings, a notification of sale. When those projects are up for sale, they have a process in place to send it out. To anyone interested. And right now, folks are interested, but there's no funding for them to move quickly enough in order to achieve it.
and to understand this more clearly, it's not just existing properties already. It's land, vacant land. It's anything that goes on the market that could contribute to.
Correct. And for our purposes, it would still need to, it would still use the same requirements that we have in place for the Housing Capital Fund projects, affordability for 50 years, serving no more than 60% AMI. Those types of things. That's just one example, but there's, and then for the communities that don't have that trigger in place of a formalized process, we hear it's more informal. There's a property in Tukwila, we've been trying to work with interested folks in this buyer who's trying to sell it to maintain the affordability. But there's no funding for that. And this would allow, I guess, that instead of waiting for our annual funding round of the Housing Capital Fund, it would be kind of throughout the year.
I think these generally don't go towards land, a rapid acquisition fund, because the idea with the rapid acquisition fund is you're trying to get housing online quickly. And if you're buying land, you still have a 3-4 year development process. So it's we rapidly acquired land, but we didn't rapidly increase the housing stock that was available to the communities. So
The goal is different. I understand.
I wouldn't want to go towards land that just, then someone has to assemble a funding stack and maybe not get the
right there.
project
That's why I
off the ground.
Okay.
But I think that's good that the typical housing capital fund does that. It's important. Eric?
I I think I have a background question first, that then will tell me what my question is. For money that sits awaiting future use, and I'm guessing that's a lot of our money has been just waiting for the time that it gets allocated to a project. Are we limited to interest earning on that, or I'm guessing the city of Auburn states, are there other,
So they're all in accounts and they're accounted for individually, yes.
but is interest the limit of the alternatives we have for generating a return on funds that are idle?
The answer to that is probably yes.
So it could be invested in other ways prior to,
They have to be liquid.
because of the ILA or the municipal laws for municipalities. Okay,
Yeah.
that was then informing my second question. If interest earning is the best we could do on idle funds, then yeah, I guess I just know which option I like better now. So I don't really have a question.
So you have no question. After your question, you have no question.
After my question was answered, I realized I didn't have a relevant question, but I had a determination, which is maybe even better.
Sorry.
Thinking about an option 6. I'm sorry, guys, of course. And whether or not right now does it have the ability, if an already funded project experiencing cost escalation due to, for example, tariffs or a labor shortage or something else that might be happening, do we have the ability to put more funding in that project in between funding cycles? Because that is certainly something that the county experiences fairly regularly, and we may be tight in coming years, and so our states will also have the ability to put that in the ability to make sure somebody can do construction season. Thank you.
Thank you.
And generally what you have seen the reserve fund being allowed to be used for. And so far Arch, for example, having a reserve fund that sits there and isn't used at all is probably not first choice. So what are some of the ways that they may dip into those reserves at all?
So, they let me know, Lindsay Masters over there let me know that they have never touched their reserve, because they aren't spending as much as they budget for, so they have additional unspent fund balance that carries over, and we're sort of in a similar boat. I wouldn't necessarily expect us to be using the reserve unless there was some major thing that came up that the board wanted to act on, or if those wanted to be used to mitigate future member dues in a particular year, that's when I would see us activating that. But it's usually used for, I guess, in these contexts, city, you all have more knowledge about how cities would use those reserve funds, but those unexpected expenses that you can't absorb in your budget.
Sorry.
Just
And then-
right, last week, executive director all the Arch thing about home ownership, whether or not they were adequately tracking the prices of home ownership. Hopefully, we will never end up in that position, and I assume they absorb costs in their regular budget. But that could be a scenario where I could see us saying, well, we didn't budget to have a forensic analysis of whether or not we're holding, to the right compliance standards, but we didn't realize we needed to think of it all.
Victoria.
That can sound pretty well, like,
Apologize for interrupting, but I'm getting feedback online. I can't raise the volume too much higher for feedback, and Sonori and that end of the table is a little bit hard for the online room to hear.
In Zoom.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I mean, I could also just stop being clear when I talk. Space outward, that may help.
Yeah, this is typically close to where we are when we are in a council study session. So when this room was designed, the mics went in the ceiling around about, we're a little bit larger than it usually is, but. Victoria.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, and kind of your question made me think of that with the reserve funds, would we have the ability to kind of parse out restricted and unrestricted if we had a reserve? So that we did have some that we knew were gonna sit there untouched, and then there was a pot we could access if we wanted to. Do we have the ability to do that?
Yes, we can structure it however you would like. And essentially, it just means as long as we're communicating with the member councils on the use of it, so we would just frame it as this dollar amount is being recommended of the interest earnings on your contributions, City of Maple Valley, to be put into reserve for an unrestricted fund balance in reserve. And then this amount is in a restricted fund balance in reserve that they would need to then approve later.
I have a follow-up to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Then are we right now deciding, so each jurisdiction could have a separate way of doing this? Is that what we're saying, or?
So, so I would say technically we would want everyone to agree on it, even though interest is accrued on each jurisdiction's contributions. Administratively, it will be, I think, easier and just probably have a higher impact if we all agree on one way to do it.
I would agree with that. I was just wondering, because the terminology of like, well, okay, Maple Valley, and I started thinking maybe I was looking at it incorrectly, so.
Excellent question, though. James.
Yeah, I mean, I started writing down ideas, places. Do I have to?
No, you don't have to talk up to us.
Started writing ideas.
Stand up when you talk.
On places that I know the affordable housing community is starting to feel constriction. I think there's always rising costs and escalating costs and things. There are folks who are anticipating funding from HUD through some Section 4 capacity building grants. They're not getting those. Affordable housers are starting to look at how do we keep our capacity going to keep doing this stuff. That stuff's really important. And I think it's being, this is now I'm over a year on this particular executive board, seeing how many times we have to come back and kind of ratify and validate to our councils. I've got an interest in using this in a way that we've already got a pretty standard policy where I can make sure the rest of my council and residents know this is already the thing that we've approved and we think is the right way to use this group. And so I think if not for me, I feel like if not option 3 outright, then option 1, 3, having the board priority be applying it towards a housing capital fund. That's something that my colleagues are ready to hear about. And it wouldn't mean any layer of questions around, well, why did we explore this? Did we think of these other things? It's hard. They can't all be at these meetings and hear the debate and the conversation. And I think we've actually had a good decision around this housing capital fund is a thing that's needed. So I'm kind of like option 3 outright or 1, 3.
Other thoughts? And Claire, are you thinking we come back to our next meeting and vote on that? Is that?
I am thinking, ideally, I'd like to put together a little bit detail for you, think about, but I'm hearing, but yes, I think we would likely adopt it in May, along with our budget and work plan. Because if option 1 is the path, I want to work with that.
So then will we have this to be able to take to respective councils for discussion, and if not a vote, at least a consensus prior to that May meeting? So council, the members here would have to speak with their respective councils in April in order to have a vote in May, right? Yes.
Can we narrow it down maybe to like 2 options that we can take to our council at the end of the day? We are here.
You can make some decisions,
Yeah.
yes. I just never want you to feel like there's overreach.
Right, and specifically for Claire to not have to elaborate on each one when she brings it back, but narrow it down to two. If could we vote on that today? Just to clarify.
You could, yes. We're not, this isn't a special meeting, so,
That's true.
I mean, they're all special meetings. but This isn't a special meeting, so we can't
Just,
do that.
you know, just a consensus, not necessarily.
Yes. Yes. Liz.
Thank you.
Mayor Ralph isn't here.
Oh, that's
I have a general idea of where her support lies, but having not seen the 5 options presented, I think she would probably want to have a say. I know she was leaning more towards, you know, the reserve operating fund concept, just knowing some of the things that I know Sonari mentioned. And so I think that, and because like number 1 has a little bit of that in there, I don't know where she would land on that, so. Not sure.
Liz.
Thank you. I actually concur with what you were mentioning about option 1, and I do think the language around a board priority is a little bit loose, so it would be good to have some direction. But I also would feel more comfortable bringing this to my council and really understanding that if we had more information about the reserve fund, we talked about possibly restricted funds, we talked about non, you know, what is this used for and what does it mean? So I think there's more to flesh out before I feel like I could personally recommend any.
I would, if we wanted to get the consensus, just a couple options, I would go with 1 and 3.
I agree with Victoria, or I'm sorry, Christina, my apologies. Right next to each other. But I agree with Christina in terms of narrowing it down between 1 and 3. I think I would be comfortable taking, because like I said, we're here to like do the work. We make time to be here to do the work, and so I think we should do the work while we're here and then just narrow it down and those options, and then we come back and vote on one of those 2 in May or April. Okay.
Probably May.
Probably May.
How are folks feeling about options 1 and 3? Are there?
What do you want to do?
Well, I'm just one vote.
But
I like,
Victoria's cards up.
I like options 1 and 3. Oh, I'm sorry, Victoria, go ahead.
That's okay. I do too, for starters. I really like 1 and 3. However, Marina, you mentioned the operating budget option was what Mayor Ralph is, what you think she, and I was wondering, do you know, I'd like to hear all angles of this. So
I don't
like
know
all
that
the-
it's actually the operating fund balance, but I know she was interested in the reserve, and I think that's just understanding where South King County city budgets are and wanting to ensure the ability to support Skip going forward if there are budget challenges. I think it's difficult to compare us to arch cities because our budgets are nothing alike arch city budgets. So I think it was more just ensuring that we're being really thoughtful about that in future.
I mean, there are going to be lean years for our cities. I mean, many of us have already felt that, and we don't know what the federal government is going to do to us, for us, with us. You know, we don't know what our HUD funding is going to be. We don't know about any of the loans or grants. Our team told me the other day that while we were looking at applying for a 108 loan, that option has gone away. I don't know if it was just for our specific situation or if the 108 loans are not available right now. But they don't have too many people there to administer any of that either way. So there are going to be years where I could see a reserve to be able to pay our membership fees for the year could be of benefit. So just throwing that out there that we have gone through, if any of you in here were electeds during the recession, it was a tough time and there were some difficult decisions made, whether you continue to be a member of SCA, AWC. Skip could be one of those determinations. So just wanting us to be sensitive to what could lie ahead of us at a time when the work that we're doing is really needed. It could be a really difficult time for us to continue to be together. Someone else have a, Stephen, did you have?
I was thinking, you know, a rising tide raises all ships, but then a lower tide lowers all the ships as well. So when we mention, you know, maybe a city would have troubles, I actually think it would be pretty uniform. I mean, it's South King County, right? It's not like the state chooses one city or whatnot. It applies to all of us. So I don't know whether we would cross that bridge when we get there and actually escalate and do what we can now, because we have the ability instead of kind of waiting. But, you know, and cross that bridge then, but that's also.
Yes, and I don't think that any of the decisions, if we were to make any of these, is binding for life, right? We could always come back and say, well, when we made the decision, option 1 or option 3 was the best choice for us. But as financial challenges face us, situations change, we can look at how we apply that accrued interest and change policy if necessary.
So clarifying question then for you, are you interested, I mean, if option 1 is of interest, would you want to adopt that policy for now, for this year, as Chair was kind of mentioning, we can kind of open this up every year a little bit, or would you want that policy to be the sort of formalized consensus and we would open it up as needed in future years? That makes sense. We want a
Okay, cool.
okay, that's helpful. Just in terms of how I frame what I bring back to you, that's helpful to know. What you would adopt then would be maintained in future years until we say otherwise. That's okay.
But that we have the opportunity to revisit it on an annual basis.
So for next meeting, I will, and maybe between now and then, what I'm gonna do, since I'm hearing a lot of interest in sharing the conversation with some of your councils, I will prepare, basically how much accrued interest we're talking about for each of your jurisdictions. So you could go and say, look, it's $50,000 we're talking about. Here's what we're talking about doing for your respective jurisdictions, because it really is a very wide range of numbers. But that may help folks feel like this it's not a huge decision to make. It's just sort of setting policy direction.
No, but I'm agreeing that it may not be large in any one jurisdiction, but I think we need to be very, very mindful of this is all of the funds, not each individual city. So I wouldn't want each city to think, oh, well, we get the option, because that just can't be. That is a nightmare for accounting. Yeah. One that our finance director would not be happy with me if I said we could do that.
But for Normandy Park, we don't need to check with council, and 1 or 3 work, either one, but not controversial for us because we contribute so.
I mean, it's truly Kent. Let's talk to Kent. Really.
Thank you. Very helpful. I got a text, Dorsal, about 20 minutes ago from someone attending online that couldn't hear the conversation. Are we good now?
I'm not receiving any.
Thank you.
We started doing
We got a little bit more animated in our section.
Okay, thank you all, for that. It's very helpful. I'm hearing option 1, option 3, maybe it's option 1 with option 3. The board priority is Housing Capital Fund. Did I make that up?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Because it's 30% that would be reserved, right? And then there would still be a remainder towards priority. Carry on the needs.
Still,
Okay.
okay. Wanted to clarify.
Everyone good with that? Perfect.
Thank you, Okay.
All right, we will move on into item C, and that is the 2026 skip work plan and also 5-year plan development. And, you know, that's why we are together every year in person to do that work. And you have seen these types of boards. If you were part of the group last year, you are familiar with that. And Claire is going to give us an initial draft of the work plan. And then we are going to be a little bit more interactive today. So Claire, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So we are running just a little behind, so I'm gonna kind of speed through some of the more basic stuff. On your screen here is the workshop for the remainder of the hour and the agenda. The goals of the day. Really, we're gonna get feedback on the draft work plan and budget. We're gonna work collaboratively together in person. I'd like to get direction on 5-year plan areas of interest for further exploration and to get direction on priority of potential 5-year actions in relation to the work. So when we think about defining our consortium and who SKIP is and what we do, you've heard me say this, there are 2 places that I look, the mission statement and the ILA. At our June meeting, time permitting, I would like us to talk through developing some core values for SKIP in the organization and to just check in on our mission statement. We don't have time for it today, but I do look forward to that conversation in June. So this is our mission statement. South King County jurisdictions working together and sharing resources to create a coordinated, comprehensive, and equitable approach to increasing housing stability, reducing homelessness, and producing and preserving quality affordable housing in South King County. These are some of the whereases in our interlocal agreement. I always think it's helpful to look through a few of these, and I'm just going to read a couple. Common goal to ensure the availability of housing that meets the needs of all income levels in South King County. Parties have determined that the most efficient and expeditious way for the parties to address affordable housing needs in South King County is through cooperative action and pooling public and private resources. Not to duplicate efforts of nonprofit corporations and other entities already providing affordable housing related services. A cooperative work plan with a primary focus on the production and preservation of affordable housing is needed because the lack of access to affordable housing is one of the key contributors to homelessness. Work plan activities will be consistent with the purpose described in the agreement of the ILA. And this is the purpose that is listed in the ILA. All parties to this agreement have a responsibility for local and regional planning for the provision of housing affordable to residents that work and or live in South King County. The parties agree to act cooperatively to formulate affordable housing policies that address housing stability and to foster efforts to preserve and provide affordable housing by combining public funding with private sector resources. So as we begin today to think about our work plan and our 5-year plan and what we want to accomplish, I think it's helpful to dust off these concepts and refresh ourselves on these items to start the conversation in our future planning work. So in terms of the process where we're at now, you took a survey back in January. Thank you for those responses. It's very helpful. I worked with the staff work group to share some initial ideas on the work plan. Today you have in your agenda packet 2 versions of the work plan and budget. That's where we're here today, and then we will do a final draft with the staff work group, and then we will be adopting the final version at the May meeting, and the council will adopt. So you should have the 2 versions of the draft work plan in your agenda packet. One is the track changes version that includes the changes made to the 2025 work plan to the 2026. And the other is the version that accepts all those changes. It's the clean version. Want to make sure folks have one of those, whichever one makes the most sense to you to follow along with. So for high level context, the 4 goals of the work plan are remain intact. No items have been removed. I'm going to give you a minute to just make sure everyone has draft work plan. All right, great. Okay, so we're not removing any items in this draft that you have before you. This is primarily because we have done a outstanding job in previous years of yes.
What should the page look like that I'm looking for?
Does it look like this? What does it look like?
That's the clean version, I think.
Okay.
That's the cover
2, and then
page.
there's.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes. Any other questions? Okay, we're good. Thank you. No items have been removed because we have done a lot of these exercises in previous years to better understand your priorities. So we've removed quite a few items from the work plan previously. Items added. So 3 items have been added, although only one is an action item. The action item is establish and implement monitoring and compliance process to ensure housing capital fund projects maintain affordability for tenants. So this is something that we will begin next year because we are just now in closing on our projects, and that monitoring happens a year after. And so I needed to add that to our work plan because it's not something we're currently doing right now. We just closed on this project, but we will need to be doing that moving forward. And I added an indicator to establish the process for monitoring and compliance. So we have lots of indicators on our work plan to help us track progress. And added an indicator for the number of collaborative work sessions held with public funders. So this would be easy to track, and it's currently missing from the work plan, but that is an action item as well. So one of the corresponding indicator. Items modified. So there's several smaller modifications made to reflect the actual work that we'll be doing next year. They're listed on your slide. I would say they're smaller changes, administrative changes, I would say, to just reflect the work that we're actually doing. One item to draw your attention to is I decreased the priority on several items under goals 2 and 3 based on your feedback in the survey. And I increased the priority for collaborative work with public funders to increase alignment. Although I may suggest, when I bring back a revised draft to you, at the next meeting, I may keep that at a medium level priority. So that was just a last minute, change.
Where
And
did
then
that change, Claire?
that is on, increased priority for the collaborative work with public funders to increase, alignment.
Where is that? I think we're all lost. Are you on goal 2?
I'm looking at it, but I don't see what you're saying.
So.
Yeah, so that is under goal, goal 3, sorry, is action 11. Collaboratively with public funders at the state and local levels to increase alignment and promote shared affordable housing goals and equitable geographic distribution of resources. So this was a medium level priority. I had suggested in this version you have, we change it to a higher priority, based on the survey. But the survey also indicated, another action item with the same number of votes. And I kept that one at a medium level priority. So I felt like I should maintain consistency, and put that back at a medium level. So a correction I'll make to this version.
So you're saying number 11 should be a median.
The opposite, it actually went high. On goal 2, then we're brought down. 7 and 8 was taken one down. And then 11 was brought up and 12 was brought down. So
But didn't you just say that 11 should be back at a median
Action 11 should be back.
to 2?
The 2 instead of 3.
Right. Because on the track changes, it shows 3.
Yeah, correct.
So 11 should be 2.
11, action 11 should be a 2. Any other clarifying questions on these changes?
You know, when I filled this out, I think that I underestimated the meet with legislators aspect of it. And where I did this over, I probably myself score meeting with legislators as a higher priority, and then also encourage others to do so. I don't know if anybody in the room agrees with that. I think we had experiences this year that demonstrated South County acting together on this issue and had good results with that. I wonder if we should keep that going.
So I'm gonna jump ahead just briefly to show the survey results of items to remove. 3 board members felt like that action item was one of the ones that could go.
That was probably me too.
Oh, really?
I
And
disagree with myself now.
well, and to just add to the level of interest, for the prioritization, 2 board members included it as their highest priority. So we do have both spectrums. Both spectrums, and so when we don't get consensus like that, or when, we're kind of all over the map, we've just put it as a lower priority, and it's,
I think there's also something to be said about once everyone has done this individually, coming back together and making sure that we agree with that. Somebody could be thinking one way, having one example, when in reality there should be or could be several examples to where it would change their priorities. So it might be good for us to go through and identify whether these are still the right numbers or not. James, you.
Oh, that reminded me to actually look at where, because I couldn't remember if I was fervently, yes, let's meet more or not. The date and time that I did this, I said that was one of my 2 priorities, was to meet with legislators. More, and now, but then it's like this constant second guessing of the structure of this ILA, of this organization is, different than a lot of these other ones we're in, where do I think CPAC should? Yes. Do I think we have collective voice here? Yes. But there's all this, we still have to bounce back and validate with our city councils before we make statements around it. And so there's, especially when session's running, a lot of this you don't really, it's not, we're not there in November and December. We aren't as a group saying, okay, here are the 6 things we know are coming. We just don't have that much data until it's like what, January, right? January 20th, maybe sometimes even later in February. We know which things are going to have enough legs to get deep enough into session that are going to be beneficial or problematic that we want to align around it. Now we've got to get back 2 weeks and meet with our city councils and try, I just feel like we may not have the structure here because we're monthly to coordinate that effort in the public eye. Even though it was a priority of mine, I'm like walking that back now of like, we should meet more with our legislators and talk about those priorities, but it comes down to the bill itself or like bill by bill. And that's where we'd have to really structure, we'd have to be practicing that throughout the year so that in January and February, we could align quickly on something. So otherwise it's still just going to be going back city by city, even if we all ended up in alignment and it was matching what AWC and other folks were saying. I still wonder, like, I'm worried about the cadence of our meetings and session.
That's fair.
I'm
not sure. So
Session is a big.
yeah.
So like with AWC, there is a legislative priorities committee. They create their legislative priorities, but in the heat of what's going on right now, there is a group of AWC board members that meet weekly or every other week to talk about some of the legislation and do we want to support it or do we not? So I don't know if there's any kind of an appetite for something like that within this group or not, if there's enough of a voice or our voices are already heard in other venues. So just throwing that out there as something that's being done.
If I could just make a quick comment though, to close my question and comment down. Because I was talking with James about this before the meeting started. We've agreed, I think we've agreed with our legislative district that we're going to have a working group of appointed members of the city governments and the legislators, the senator and the 2 House representatives. So I think avoid a repeat of what happened this year. And we're all members of SKIP. And so there's going to be some odd cadence, but overlap in other issues between the different bodies that are working on this SCA, AWC, and then legislative district working groups. By the way, I recommend, if you don't already, but think about having a working group of cities and legislators for your legislative district too, because we're just getting further and further apart with each legislative session. So I think we need to have more accountability, but I guess we'll see how that goes. And maybe that'll give us some more ideas for how well this cadence fits that.
That is a great idea.
And are we the only 2 here who are fully within 1 LD? You're fully within, Renton is?
I mean, we have a little bit of the 5th.
Okay.
But it's with the last redistricting, the majority, it went from like 4 or 5 LDs, which is wild in Renton, to like now we're majority of the 11th. And we have a little bit of the 5th too.
You had like a street or 2 in the 33rd.
It's no,
No,
with
you
the redistricting, we're mainly now 5th and 11th, and that's it. We were all over the place last time, but no, we're now, so yeah.
For Kent, isn't it like a fifth of the cities in the 33rd, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
And the 47th. Yeah, the 47th. Auburn has the 30th, a small bit of the 30th, the 31st, and the 47th.
There's about 30 folks, elected at the state level that encompass.
So my comment about a working group is mostly not chuckles because a lot of you were split across many of them.
I never.
Fighting 33rd, we can do it.
But it's still a great idea, right? Instead of just those once a year pre-legislative session meetings that some have. You know, we're fortunate in the 47th or in the 47th, 30th and 31st that we have different parties, right? The 31st is all ours. The 30th and the 47th are all D's. But they can work together, right? Some of them have been able to work together, so not all of them, but some of them. But it is a great idea too.
If I can I get on this just for a moment, because I'll say, like, even just trying to add it to our legislative agenda, like skip priorities, I got a little pushback because like of everything that was mentioned here, right? Because we're Renton and we're not like any other city. Did you catch that tone? Yeah, okay.
So, but I just.
I don't know subtlety. She doesn't know me either. But so I think I like the idea and I agree with what's being said. Like, I think we would be a stronger cohort out of the South King County region if we collectively came together at the legislature for sure. I don't know if everyone would agree with me on that. I'm here for it. And if we want to just like do it, let's do it. But I'm just saying, like, I got pushback for even just having this as the line of our legislative agenda priority.
So I think the question for today is priority levels. Right now, it's low. It doesn't mean we're not gonna do it, right? It means that in relation to everything else on the work plan, this is a lower.
Christina?
Wait, because I'm a little off topic, but I have a strange question. Why is pooling resources from member cities even a priority? Like, we do that? Why are we labeling? And diluting the rest? No, truly, I mean, you're part of SKIP. Here's the member dues, let's get going, let's get doing, right? Why is that even mentioned as? Do you see where I'm going with that? Kind of?
I do.
Well, so it's on the work plan because it is still happening. We're still working jurisdictions.
Oh, so with other cities that are not pulling yet? That are not part of this, or are
The
within SKIP?
cities that are still having the conversation and trying to figure out what that ongoing contribution looks like.
But they're member dues, I'm assuming. The rest of it.
Sorry, this is for capital fund, yeah.
No.
The slide cuts it off. I could read it fully to you. It is full resources from member cities for the housing capital fund, including substitute House Bill 1406 funds, House Bill 1590 funds, and general funds.
Even still, like that, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
there are
and maybe there's
still-
work that actually goes true active work that goes into that, but
The work that goes into that, for example, working with CTAC when they were joining, it was the coming to council and talking about joining SKIP, and what that means. And then working behind the scenes. If they weren't contributing general funds, we would have done an ILA. So it's preparing the ILA, working it through the councils, and there are untapped potential resources among our group here as well, that are possible to pool.
all right, thank you. I feel like it goes doesn't need to be said, but if there, if you see the value, you see the value, and I hope that the cities that don't start seeing the value.
I understand what you're saying. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
I was gonna say to that point, because I was like, yeah, I get that, but Maple Valley last year was the first year that we contributed beyond dues.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think that took time and, resources from staff and resources from, representatives too. So I 100% get your point. Well, it is work to still try to make sure you're getting everything that you can. And as new municipalities come on board, making sure that, so I get that, but I also get what you're saying.
Yeah, perhaps it may not have to be like on the very top, but anyway, it's an understanding, it's a perspective, right? Yeah.
James.
I think I had kind of a similar reaction to these, where it's like, well, of course, we're gonna do that. That's the purpose and the point. But I think what I was trying to get in my around, what I think I've landed on is, this is us telling you, this is how we want the organization, Claire and Dorsal, to spend their time, is just doing these things. And sometimes, like, if you're an organization that provides meals, obviously cooking is going to be a really big part of your day. It seems like you shouldn't have to say it. But if the time sheets come back and it says, well, I spent 80 hours cooking and 2 hours administering, that's not a work plan to cook. Oh, okay. Well, maybe we have to include some of the inherent and the implicit stuff, right? So I think that the purpose here is to make much of the implicit explicit so that when you're spending all of your time working on these things throughout the year, getting CTAC on board with the ILA, working with our council, that's not an aside to the important work of the executive board meetings. That's actually what we've said. Please continue to spend 30 of your 40 hours doing these 9 critical things. But with those 10 hours, you're acting up to shape with those other 10 hours, reprioritize maybe, or obviously it's the whole 40 that we prioritize, but is that the right framing? Is like, it's really,
That is, and it's,
these are supervisory documents essentially.
that's right. It's, it is how we spend our time. It's what, and it's everything. Because I want to be fully transparent with you. And then, as a nice segue, the staff capacity analysis printed a little smaller. But kind of see, you know, number one, the pool resources from member cities, you know, it's something I dedicate 2% of my time to, or I anticipate for next year. And Dorsal 1% of his time, so.
Yeah, I saw that then and
So all the priority level really means is in terms of, in relation to the rest of the work plan, you know, once we get through the highest level priorities, do we have time for the medium level priorities? Yes, we have, on the 2024 work plan, we did that. The lower level priorities are the ones that we can kind of scale back as needed. So that's all that means. And doing a time check. Want you to look at the staff capacity analysis. Really, I think the key takeaway, it's this document here. So items 2, 3, and 4, those are all related to the administration of the Housing Capital Fund. That next year is anticipated to take up 54% of my time. So I think it's important. This analysis is helpful in the context of the adoption of the annual work plan, also going into our 5-year plan planning process to understand where our time and resources are currently allocated. And so this is important as we consider, are we adding items? And if we're adding items, it means we're either scaling back current items or we're removing items. So this actually does apply for the 5-year plan planning process as well. Regarding the draft work plan, is there other feedback that you have from me regarding the proposed red line changes? Or did want to move keep legislators up priority level, and we want to decide that now. That is got back.
What if? Go ahead, Christina.
swapped 1 and 14. I mean, it's the same. It's very, I mean, percentage wise, it's similar, but I just still, how can we put number 14 at the bottom? It just doesn't sit well with me that it's that low. It's so
sorry, you're talking about the number itself,
right.
So
That's what I was all.
just so so you're aware, the numbers don't correspond with priority.
No, but number 14 is what she's saying is in lower
Oh,
priority.
I see what you mean. My
Yeah, yeah.
apologies. Yep.
Yeah.
So
And that's just me still down about it, but.
So can I add a comment to that?
Yes.
This is a public meeting, okay. I will say it in public. Part of the rationale of House Bill 1380 this year was a belief that cities were not doing enough on their own, or that there wasn't sufficient framework for cities to respond to issues of homelessness and affordable housing. I think one of the benefits of prioritizing meeting with legislators is to feature the good work that's being done by interlocals like SKIP and Arch and others, so that there's more awareness, I think, and acceptance of and celebration of what cities are doing on their own. And it's not to say that this is going to be an answer to every policy that comes up or proposal that comes up in the legislature that we don't like, but it could at least help to build understanding in the legislature of what's being done organically, at the city level on their own. So even if we consider it low priority, I agree with Christina that it's actually still high priority, because I mean, if we were even to enumerate in dollars or hours the amount of effort that went into responding to something this year like 1380, that was a cost just to respond to and just to fight against, and that's money
Huge
and
cost.
time that could have just been put into homelessness. And if we were to denominate just inside our own smaller city staff hours, it's hundreds to thousands of staff hours, and that's just for the smallest city here at the table, and that's one bill. So I think there's still advantage to meeting more with the legislature and trying to decrease the rate at which states try to solve cities' problems for them, and instead trust cities to have good local frameworks like SKIP.
So let me ask a question then, because I don't disagree with you. There are a lot of hours that just on that one bill on 1380 that we all spent. Claire said that there were roughly 30 state electeds represented around this table. Would it make sense for us to put on a forum and invite those 30 representatives off legislative season
It's a great idea.
and explain to them what we're doing and explain to them what our philosophies are and what we want them to be supporting?
And by the way, we as a city, I think I'm going to talk with council about this, but I think we want to increase our investment, because it doesn't, and SKIP, because it doesn't make sense for us to try to have different responses at the city level for a city our size. We should just put more money into SKIP and voluntarily put more money in and feature that to our voters, our residents, to in the legislature. And I think a forum is a great way, for SKIP overall, for cities to talk about what we're doing locally.
Anytime we can get the legislator.
Yeah.
Here and in front and seeing the good work that is being done, I'm all for it.
James.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of my priorities. What I think we have to figure out then is, I think that will bump something. And I think it won't be, I think it'll bump more than just number one as far as hours. And so we have to reprioritize, because 30 of those folks, if you've ever worked on getting meetings with legislators, and I think this is what you and Dorsa will be doing. If it's 30 of those, it would be amazing if it only took you an hour per. I think that's ambitious. I think we're closer to probably 2 or 3 hours per legislator. If we cushion and say 4, you're at now 120 hours out of a 2080, right? We're getting closer to that. 5 to 10% of someone's job is now meeting with, or trying to get that, because I imagine there will be an advanced meeting, maybe probably not with an LA off session, but I'm just trying to. I think I do obviously think it's important, but what are we you're gonna have to recalibrate based on that to make these other percentages add up still too, because you're already over 100. I noticed. You're already at 101%. Always given 103, 91. Oh, the green, yeah, 103. See, at SKIP, we don't give 101%, right? We give 103. And so I would like to know, if we agree to that, what are the things, what would you recommend we analyze as just to make the numbers add up?
I think, so, you know, my capacity is at 91% for just the highest priority items. So I wouldn't anticipate, reducing any of that, but I could reduce, you know, my participation with the advisory board as an example.
For something like the forum, would it help if I volunteered to reach out to every legislator that was represented by the member cities and just take that on in terms of the time costs?
And I think,
Wait, so I'm sorry, on that note, sorry to put a pin on that, Eric. Actually, that's a really good idea. And also in our role, like what capacity are we allowed to actually take on? Because if you're at 103 and like some of us are identifying needs as priorities, is it written into kind of like how we operate? Is Eric allowed to take on that work? Like, and if so, like, can we actually start splitting maybe some of the stuff that we want to prioritize?
yeah, we're not a
and
union
stuff?
shop here in this. We are not
I'm just
worried about.
making sure, because if we're gonna set this precedent, it will turn into something like, for me, houselessness is a huge priority, probably bigger than some, and like, if I want to do some extra work towards that, like, I'm down for that, right? Like, in the same veil.
We've talked about this in the summer months when we talk about the
Mhm.
development of the legislative priorities here. And what that looks like to, you know, be an advocate for, you know, South King County. And we can certainly would love to expand your role if you're interested to, you know, wear that hat. We just want to communicate and make sure
Right.
you've got talking points and that
Yeah.
we're aligned on a shared vision and a shared message, which is, I think, would be the hardest part.
I would see it as easiest. I'd work for you and you tell me what to say. I just-
And I think because most of us have relationships with our legislators, right? Or we should, or we will. Having a united message, and then we reach out to those that we know or that we are familiar with. You could reach out to the ones in your jurisdiction, and likewise. Then it's a familiar email and a familiar name, and maybe Eric, you pick up the phone and you call one of yours, right? And where I probably wouldn't do that, I don't know them as well. You could do that and have that, because we've worked on relationships, and be able to get them here more than somebody else may be able to.
No, I like that even better. One of the sacrifices that I also knowingly made in the 1380 process was I dirtied up my name a little bit with the legislature because we had to fight hard. And I think it's especially this year, the smarter choice is to split it up among the group and, you know, not have a single spokesperson. But for me especially,
I don't think you dirtied anything. I think you were just a hero.
I fought as hard as I thought we needed to, but it did some damage to relationships. And after you started mentioning that, I realized, yeah, my name might have come up in a couple of the wrong meetings, but that's okay. I would love to call the 33rd, 34th. I also know pretty well. And I think that other folks have good relationships in their legislative districts. Be a great way to relieve Claire and Dorsal for the forum idea, which I think is still such a leading, maybe flagship event that we could offer that would just build bridges and build relationships, build understanding.
Yeah, there could be a formatting that's similar. Maybe that's the role that Claire and Doris will take on. Liz, and then Victoria, and then so.
Thank you. And I'm hoping we can move on from the work plan. If we can wrap it up a little bit, we can always revisit this at the April meeting. And I want to get to the activities for the 5-year plan too, so. Okay.
I will be brief. I was hearing a couple of different things, and Eric, I think you started to split them apart to one forum that potentially Skip would put together where we invite in all of these 30 people, and maybe we get 10. That'd be great. And then maybe individuals go out and do that as well. I'm much more comfortable with that than trying to think about, 10% or 20% of your work time becoming a lobbying organization. So I guess I want to make sure that that's not the direction we're going, that's not Skip's main purpose, is to be a lobbying. So try and, kind of facilitate some of those relationships where we can, but in one organized, we're all in it together kind of mode, and then individuals can reach out to people that they have relationships with.
You talked to me.
Troy?
Just real quick, because I'm very much the same as what you guys are saying, and that's a lot what we do with CLTC, so Southeast Area Legislative Transportation Coalition. So everybody interacts with their own legislators for the most part, and then we speak with them in Olympia when we go like at action days. There's a unified letters that go out that everybody signs on to, but yeah, it's when I was looking at that assumes this is all staff time, and I agree, so I don't add a lot, but there's several of us in this room that can lighten that load, and I think it'll be really effective, so all forward with that.
Dorsal?
I just want to add, that Maria from the Skip Advisory Board has suggested that it might be something that the advisory board could work with the executive board to hold a forum together to help spread
Yeah.
out some of that work too.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you, Maria. Sonari?
Yeah, as we're exploring this, it's getting really clear, and I think we're putting that on paper, what are we talking about for scope, because I agree, I don't think the lobbying or like trying to engage in sessions is a winning strategy for this group, and as much as we can focus on, where I think Eric started with, what are the good things we're doing and how do we lift them up, because that's where our unity is, and avoiding trying to take too much of positions on things that might be coming up, but just saying, hey, here's what we're doing, we want to make sure you know that we care about development, and here's how we're showing that. I think is where we can come together. Because otherwise, we're gonna lose a lot of time trying to edit a statement or, something like that. And then clear up the other parts of the county put on ledge forum through the behavior. Right, disabilities, whatever. Okay, what does it take to pull that off? They're probably care what we're talking about.
Good discussion. That's why I love these groups. This group.
So, if I may propose then, for next meeting, I'm hearing a lot of interest in the forum ideas. I can phrase it in a way that's for next year that we would explore and carry out if possible or feasible, or make it flexible to host this forum among the skip jurisdictions. Does that sound good to add to the work?
Yeah, well, we may have to amend the 2025, because if we do that, I think we're talking about doing it this prior to the next legislative session. So we would want to amend our 2025 work plan to include.
Or just, I would volunteer that we could just do it instead of amending the work plan, because to amend it then we could then bring it to all the councils again for approval, but if we just, if that would work for you.
I'm good without having to go to.
It's on here, it's just,
Yeah.
it's not new.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the current work plan.
Okay. So then would you want to add it to the 2026 work plan as well? Not knowing what it looks like.
I would say yes.
Absolutely.
I think if you do it 1 year and it doesn't work, you don't know if it didn't work because we were still building steam, or if it just was the wrong idea. Give it a couple years.
And the players change.
Yes. That's true. I will phrase it in a way that makes sense, given all the parameters. Okay, thank you. We are running low on time. And I'm going to give you a quick overview and summary. There were some ideas that folks wanted to add to the work plan. And would love to maybe revisit this at our next meeting, this section, to just give it the time that I think it needs. So that we can move into the budget, and the 5-year plan. That works for us. So. The budget is included on the last page of. In terms of revenue. Overall, the member dues are increasing by 15% through 2026. This was a board policy that was adopted in 2021. That moves us towards a more balanced budget. And your councils were briefed on this in 2023 and 2024, so those represented in the budgeted expenditures overall are increasing just by 3% over 2025. I've aligned the budget categories to match those of our administering agency. So we're rolling up some of the line items into professional services. And then for discussion here, there's a couple items that I am also going to get your feedback on at our April meeting to make sure we have enough time. But the accrued interest, we already did talk about. The $18,000 here is regarding the Affordable Housing Inventory Dashboard, which is an internal tool used by our long-range planners to basically track and monitor naturally occurring affordable housing, to advance preservation strategies that were adopted in the comprehensive plans. So the $18,000 is not included in this draft budget. But to update the dashboard and keep it relevant, we've heard we need to do that about every 2 years. And so the city of SeaTac actually funded our last update before they joined as a member of SKIP. So we appreciated that. And now ongoing, it'll be about $18,000. Is there any additional information you would need about this number or this request that I could plan to bring back to you in April? If it shows up in the draft budget for next meeting, have a further discussion then about removing it. Okay. All right, we're gonna do this 5-year plan. So we don't have a longer term vision for plan beyond our annual plan that we develop together. I have a vision, of course, as the executive manager, but we do not collectively have one. So there have been some big ideas presented at this board and that are also included in our ILA. In order to even consider these, we need to take a longer view of the organization and assess what it might look like to incorporate additional items into our work. But entering this process with the assumption that the board is not interested in adding additional staff, although there may be cases where a small handful of member jurisdictions might be interested in pulling together for some purpose. I'll flag those items for you when we get there. So just please know I'm approaching that conversation with that fiscally conservative lens. So why are we talking about a 5-year plan? Well, it establishes the vision for the next 5 years, fosters consensus, and provides clarity. It allows us time to adjust allocating resources and staffing, provides the opportunity for discussion on achieving new goals. And in terms of the timeline, I've mentioned this before, I'm hoping that every in-person meeting, we can have this conversation. So that would be in June and in September, and then as needed supplemented also throughout the year. So the ideas inventory. So you should have something that looks like this in front of you. So the first step in this 5-year planning process is to inventory all of the ideas for options provided by board members from the ILA, looking at our past work plans to bring back and to do a high-level summary analysis, which is what this document represents. These are the 16 ideas that you all shared with me through your survey, ideas that are in our ILA that say that that is what we were formed to do, and other places as well. So does everyone have this copy of this? Great. So just explaining a little bit about what you are looking at. So the 5-year action, so these are the ideas. Next to that is the origin, where this idea came from. To the right of that is the effort that it would take to accomplish that action. Next to that is the impact. What kind of a return would that action have? If there's a cost to it, staffing required, suitability for contracting, and then a notes column. And then on the far left, you'll see that I categorized it into one of 4 quadrants of lower effort, higher return, higher effort, higher return, lower effort, lower return, higher effort, lower return. So it looks like something like this. This is called a priority matrix. So you've probably seen something like this. So each corresponding number on this chart is included in the quadrant as well. And you'll see back here the items on the poster boards as well. So I was hoping we could go through these items, but we are very low on time, I think, to go through all of these, but I would like to at least start the conversation and see if there are ideas on here that rise to the level of your ability to determine today if you can say, I'm interested in these 5 ideas. That's all we're really looking for. The feedback is not something that then would set in stone any of these actions and say, yes, we are going to pursue this. The feedback I'm hoping to get through a voting process is to just gauge your interest on these initial ideas. So if it makes sense, I think instead of me standing up here and talking you through each of these ideas, I could also do that if you think that would be helpful, is for you to review the 16 ideas on here and determine your top 5 items that you're, I guess, most excited about and that you would like more information on. Does that sound reasonable?
Actually, a quick question.
Yes.
Thank you. If it's already in the ILA, do we want to prioritize those as well? Or do we assume that those are already priorities are in the ILA versus the new additions to the ideas?
It's a good question. I'd say it's really up to the board. The ILA has very ambitious goals for us and things that it says that we would do, and realistically, if we're not able to fund the staffing to do that, then. So that's what, that's sort of what this conversation would be about. And if folks do want to do that, would be good feedback as well, and we would know that based on the voting exercise where those items land. So yes, if you'd like to, if that makes sense. For folks.
And we respond by email with our top 5.
Yes, you can.
I got a plane ride coming Monday. This is exactly what I can do on a plane. Not in the next 3 minutes.
Yeah, this is a council.
Yeah. You have a question?
Layla from Federal Way. So I have Brian's votes. I can forward you the email of what he said, or he wants to now.
You can.
Top 5.
5, yep.
Your top 5. Victoria, did you have something you wanted to?
Just for the top 5, are we doing that right now, or is that the email?
That'll be the email.
Yeah.
Unless you have them that you want to give to
If you
Claire
have-
before you leave.
Yeah, if you do, I would be very happy to accept. Yeah, extra credits. And when you do send that to me as well, there's a second part of the activity that I would have liked to have done today, which is to then know what those top 5 are and to take them and put them on our work plan to talk through how you would prioritize those top 5 in relation to our existing work, so I can know in a 5-year span where to kind of squeeze some work plan items to bring up to know where it would align and fall. So we can't do that though until we determine the top 5 as a collective. And so this may be something to I can do over email with you all or bring back to another board meeting.
So if we will all commit to sending our top 5 to Claire by the end of next week, is that fair? Okay. And then we can do that at an upcoming meeting. All right, let's move on to the last item, updates and announcements. I know Claire has several things, but I just want to acknowledge that yesterday at the King County Regional Homelessness Authority board meeting, Dorsal, who is, are you the chair or the co-chair?
Co-chair.
Co-chair of the Continuum of Care, did an outstanding job presenting to the KCRHA board. I just want to say kudos to you. It was a well thought out, well presented report, and I think it was of great value. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Claire.
Thank you. So a contracting update you heard me mention earlier, but wanted to share the exciting news that we have officially closed on our first, not one, but our first 2 projects for the Housing Capital Fund. And so Victorian Place 2 in Des Moines was our rehab project. And that check is now, I have heard, on its way out the door to the multi-service center. So we are just so thrilled. And then Bury and Miller Creek, we also closed on the award from the 2022 funding round. So hopefully this gives you an idea of the length of time it takes between when you are making these funding decisions and when we close on contracting. So it is a labor of love for sure.
Are we getting invited to groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings?
So Bury and Miller Creek, you were invited in the summer, and I don't think anyone was able to attend. But yes, absolutely, on any projects, we will be, sending around those invitations. And then in terms of legislative update, Dorsal did provide those in your agenda packet. So those slides have been updated as of yesterday.
The one in the packet is from last week, but I can send out an updated slide from this morning.
Thank you. And then the annual report, so the final numbers did come in and I'm working to update that draft you saw last meeting. So I'll send that by next meeting as well. On the June meeting, based on the survey you all took last meeting, we are going to move the June meeting to June 13th. That's the one that worked for the majority of folks to attend in person. We are launching a webpage on the SKIP site that shows where all our awarded Housing Capital Fund projects are. And Dorsal's been working hard on that. Thanks, guys. So we're excited to share that with you in the coming months. I will be on vacation April 4th through 15th. And so because of this, I'll be sending the agenda packet out April 3rd. So for matters, you can contact Dorsal in my absence. And then next week, I'll be presenting at the City of Renton, City of Federal Way, and City of Des Moines, seeking concurrence on those Housing Capital Fund awards that you all recommended. That's all I have. You, Chair.
Thank you, James.
I think for the good of the order, we only need to hear how the babies are doing. Student members abandon us. Extraordinarily important reasons.
I have like 20,000 pictures. Great. So Rowan is 10 months. He's just has been pulling himself up to stand this week. It's incredible to watch. It's amazing. He's doing great.
Well, I use 10 months today. And pulling up to stand and invite everything inside. We have 8 feet, so I feel like more are coming. Nice college dream.
Excellent. Any other things for the good of the order? Anyone going to have a fun weekend? Anything fun planned? I'm going to do our taxes, our daughter's taxes, and my brother's taxes this weekend. At a party.
Your week isn't ending.
After a taxing week.
I would laugh or I'll cry. Well, thank you all very much. Hey, good to see you. Have a great weekend. Did you have anything that you wanted to share?
No.
No. Well, have a fabulous weekend.
All right. Take care, guys.
That's it.